Chapter 429. Ling Su's fingers were numb, the qi and blood in his body were boiling, and a few of his meridians started to crack. Dong. The spear tip lit up with a faint light aura. The sheep horn wind bells that had absorbed a large amount of star power started to reveal faint patterns. All of these patterns were extremely intricate and complicated, revealing a faint silver light at that moment. It started to undulate, bringing forth a faint silver halo faintly discernible like clouds or clouds. His silver hair fluttered, the young man's orange pupils blazed without any fear. Ling Su's spear shot out like rain. When the soil touched the spear auras, it immediately shattered. Damn it! Ling Su's heart was burning with rage, although he knew the opponent was a saint, although he knew the opponent was stronger than him, although he knew it was normal for him to be at a disadvantage. He and Flamingo lost their strength, and along with the soil that flew into the sky, they fell to the ground. Crane's gaze was cold. The crane sword in his hand lit up with a gentle light aura. Your blade saint is here. Crane said indifferently, his gaze was looking far away. In mid-air, without any support, Crane's left leg retreated. Both of his legs bent, his body crouched down, he retracted his elbow and pushed out. A perfect thrust from his sword technique. Ling Su had already used up all of his strength, but Xiaoda seemed to know what he was thinking. The palm blade in his hand continued to slash continuously. The terrifying power contained in the spear tip was actually disappearing bit by bit. Xiaoda's every movement was so clear, so natural, and he even had a smile on his face. Ling Su looked at him with disdain and spat out 2 words, coward. But at that moment he could no longer change. Are we really going to be the vanguard? Tang Tian's face was twisted. This change came without any warning, and in such a short period of time, there was such a strong contrast, causing Ling Su's face to change. He felt that it was extremely weird. Like a wild beast's roar, the true power in his body was like thunder. The faint spear aura suddenly exploded with light aura, bringing along a lingering silver halo like a beautiful comet. It struck into Xiaoda's ferocious blade aura. Since it is like that, then it will not change. Xiaoda's slash was extremely natural, without the slightest hint of a fiery aura. Even the smile on his face did not change at all. It was still casual and relaxed. This slash was filled with an indescribable beauty, causing Tang Tian and Crane to be in a daze. Sorry for the long wait. Xiaoda cupped his hands and spoke with a warm and amiable tone, causing others to be unable to help but have a good impression of him. Hello, uncle. Tang Tian greeted him politely. Kill. Only now did the 3 of them clearly see Xiaoda's appearance. He had a thin appearance, wore a navy blue gown and seemed refined and composed. Moreover, he emanated a tranquil and indifferent aura. He looked like a teacher in an academy without the slightest sharpness. Instead, he exuded a scholarly aura. Little brother, you're really impatient. Xiaoda smiled with interest. He sized up Ling Su and nodded. This must be little brother Ling Su. Rumor has it that little brother Ling Su inherited the silver frost spear. Seeing you today, you are indeed extraordinary. So powerful. A look of madness surfaced on Ling Su's face. He was originally not a person who could adapt to changes. Xiaoda's extremely contrasting slash, although it made him feel weird to the point that he wanted to vomit blood, but he did not have any thoughts of adapting to it. Xiaoda's casual change was something that he could not do. But why was he not satisfied? Crane respectfully returned the greeting. Junior Crane greets Elder Xiao. With just a casual palm blade, it caused my meridians to be injured. Is this a saint rank? Am I going to die? There was no astonishing explosion. It was as light as the spring breeze. Little Su's original intention had never changed. But it was more courageous than before, more determined than before, and more persistent than before. The blade slashed down. An indescribable light aura blossomed in front of Ling Su. If there was nowhere to dodge, then don't dodge. Ling Su only felt that the spear tip was empty. It was as though he had accumulated all his strength but swung it in the air. That feeling was so unbearable that he wanted to vomit blood. Crane's gaze swept across the surroundings. The area around the starry door had already been fortified, and there was not a single person left alive. It was obvious that Yen Yonglai had long predicted that they would attack. He might as well empty the area and use it as a battlefield. Xiaoda's face revealed a look of surprise. Ling Su's strength was much more outstanding than what he had imagined. It had been a long time since he had met a young man who could counterattack on the second move. Ling Su's hands became light. He lost control of his silver spear. It transformed into a silver light and flew to the side. The spear aura that was about to hit Ling Su trembled slightly. Then he heard a wung sound. It was as though a heavy hammer was swung in the air. The sound of the wind caused his skin to go numb. Suddenly the space in front of him darkened. A confident and agile black figure blocked in front of him. The silver spear tip was transparent like a crystal. There were layers of silver halos lingering around it. The palm blade that was like a cool breeze flowing through the mountains suddenly became a strong and fierce heavy blade-breaking technique. Ling Su was indifferent. The silver spear in his hand pointed straight at Xiao Da. "Let's fight. Stop talking nonsense." The transparent spear tip brought along a ray of light and entered the blade aura that was covered in frost. In Ling Su's eyes, this slash did not have any sense of beauty. It was a simple and plain slash. But it made him feel that there was nowhere to hide. Even the palm aura that was released was not sharp. It was like a cool breeze flowing through the mountains. There was no sense of danger. The low and deep sound that was like a heavy drum swept out with a terrifying wave of qi. There was no beautiful light. But it was filled with danger. All of Ling Su's attention was attracted by this blade. Even the sky behind Xiao Da was about to be split into two by this blade. But aren't the vanguards just small characters? Tang Tian's face was unhappy. He waved his arms. He shouted, "A godlike young man should appear like a hero at the end. Only then will he look more impressive." A figure appeared on the horizon. The sunlight elongated his shadow. He walked leisurely. His expression was calm. But his speed was extremely fast. He was just a small black dot. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of him. If that was the case, it meant that Xiao Da was not far away. He clamped Flamingo tightly with both of his legs. Flamingo's long bent legs suddenly exploded with an astonishing power. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he shot into the sky. The transparent spear tip was about to collide with the silver fish-like blade auras. The silver light of the sheep horn wind bells suddenly exploded. The blade auras were dyed with frost. The dangerous and concentrated blade auras stopped for a short moment. Flamingo and Ling Su were like steel rods that were fiercely nailed into the ground. The powerful force caused the ground around him to shatter into countless of pieces. It was as though an invisible hand had thrown the pieces into the sky. Crane exposed a charming smile. "Please do not overestimate your own position. It will bring a lot of trouble to everyone." Before he finished speaking, he bent his right arm. His palm was like a blade as he slashed down. Xiao Da's eyes lit up. He could not help but praise Crane. He smiled. His palm blade slashed onto Ling Su's spear tip. No matter how he changed, he was stabbed to death. But Ling Su could only watch as the transparent spear tip slowly regained its silver color. The light aura dimmed down bit by bit. Seeing the even more concentrated blade auras, Ling Su's eyes flashed a look of fanaticism. "Teacher, please look at little Su's improvement." Like a silver rain, it shot into the sky. Ling Su's face changed. He had long known of the strength of a saint. But recently his strength had increased explosively. Tang Tian was not the only one who had benefited from Ursa Major constellation. His strength unknowingly had reached another peak. He firmly believed that with his current strength, although he was unable to challenge a saint, but he had the strength to retaliate. Xiao Da's praise came from above. The mud in the sky covered the sky. Ling Su was shrouded in a shadow. He raised his head and looked for Xiao Da with all his might. The crane sword's light aura exploded. It was as though the sword aura enveloped him, reflecting Crane's handsome but calm face. "Persevere in the heart, do not move." "Good." Ling Su's orange eyes suddenly lit up with a blazing light aura. On the back of the bird he suddenly lowered his body. His back arched like a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey. The 5 fingers on his right hand that was holding onto the spear was completely relaxed. He gently rubbed it. The light aura came quickly and left even faster. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. Xiao Da's palm blade slashed onto the spear tip. It was soft and powerless. Ling Su squinted his eyes. He did not have the intention to bow. His killing intent soared. "Who will go first?" "Teacher, I have never forgotten. Justice Origin Core Pierce." Xiao Da's slash caused Ling Su to feel as though a bucket of ice water was poured over his head. The arrogance in his heart was immediately swept away. There was only one way he could do it. Crane turned his head. He was surprised. Don't tell me you don't want to rush to the front? Good spear technique. Xiaoda looked down. Beneath his feet were countless silver auras. They were densely packed like a vast ocean. He laughed. He bent his elbow and formed a palm. His palm was like a blade. He slashed down. But Tang Tian said unhappily, "Hey, you two have no ambition. This godlike young lad came to this world to be a hero. Oh. Speaking of which, it is weird. Where's Xiaoda? Why haven't we met? We have already been in Ursa Major constellation for 3 days. Is there anyone who is a blade saint like this? That is too irresponsible." As expected of a silver frost young lad. You are fearless and unyielding. Xiaoda laughed. Then let this old man experience the wind of silver frost. The silver spear spun out. Like a silver snake coming out of its hole, it was as fast as lightning. Even if the opponent was a saint, he was not satisfied. This blade brought forth countless of fine silver blade auras. Under the setting sun, they dazzled with layers of light auras. Like countless of silver fishes, they chased after Xiaoda's palm blade. The fine blade auras tore through the air, causing Xiaoda's figure to become blurry. But when he faced Xiaoda's casual slash, he realized that the difference between him and a saint was not just the difference in true power. In terms of understanding martial techniques, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Ling Su, who had straightened his state of mind, calmed down his originally restless heart. The spear auras that filled the sky like a sea of stars suddenly drew out countless of dazzling straight light scars that entered Ling Su's spear tip. Xiaoda's smile that was not a smile was extremely piercing to Ling Su. Xiaoda's palm blade was raised again. A terrifying energy ripple spread out from his palm blade. The smile on Xiaoda's face disappeared. His expression was solemn. Chapter 430. Your Majesty, are you trying to tell us that we have no other way out? Saint rank, this is a saint rank and it is my first time challenging a saint rank? So excited. Tang Tian did not care at all. He looked at Xiaoda with a fanatical gaze. For Crane to be able to receive that blade, his strength was definitely not weak. Such a fast fist. Such a heavy fist. Wait a minute. Tang Tian suddenly jumped out. He rubbed his fists. Hey, the two of you have made your move. I have not challenged anyone yet. Whether or not Ada can block them, I am suddenly not sure. Yan Yonglai looked far away and muttered to himself, Tang Tian's strength and the strength of his subordinates I actually do not know. And at this time the opponent is giving me a fatal strike from behind. How can I not lose? The grizzly bear army roared. The shock in his heart was not fake. The blade hand he used just now had the intention to kill and did not hold back. Who knew that Crane would actually receive it, causing him to be surprised. At his level of strength, there was not much difference between having a blade and not having a blade. Well, then I can rest easy. Yan Yonglai's face revealed warmth. Although Ada usually has many opinions about me and does not fight with anger, but he will definitely not leave me in the lurch. Master Xiao is overpraising me. Crane was neither servile nor overbearing. Where's Aze? Yan Yonglai suddenly asked. Duff could only speak the truth. Orion Constellation's other Saint rank Li Dai also appeared in the Orion Palace. He caused us to suffer heavy casualties. Yan Yonglai laughed. You should be happy for me. As a leader, to be able to die in such a manner in my own palace, compared to dying on my bed, is many times better. Xiaoda's gaze swept across the three of them, his heart filled with admiration, and said, If the three of you are willing to accompany this old man to sit here and chat for a month, this old man is willing to gift you with my cultivation experience, although it is shallow, but I believe it will be of help to the three of you. You are already so old but still so competitive, to the point that you can even throw away your life. Xiaoda sighed. I never thought that I would not be able to save your life. Since that's the case, I'll use the heads of these three brats as a sacrifice to you. The transparent ripples in the air exploded in front of Xiaoda. Xiaoda instantly made a judgment. Tu Qing stared blankly at the bright Ursa Major constellation in the sky, his tears flowing uncontrollably. Yan Yonglai mumbled to himself, Li Dang is an open and honest man. He used his life to exchange for that favor. He is a real man. A sharp air turbulence swept past Xiaoda's face. Tang Tian shouted. He suddenly exerted strength in his legs and pounced directly at Xiaoda. The Ursa Major constellation above them would burn for a full 3 months, and in these 3 months, the power of Ursa Major constellation's star treasures would increase greatly. The great general has already led his army to surround Orion Palace, but the opponent's resistance is extremely tenacious. The Grizzly Bear army is unable to display their strength. The Honorable Martial Alliance is also attacking with all their might, and both sides have suffered heavy casualties. Duff's face revealed hesitation. Tu Qing stopped. He raised his head. The Ursa Major constellation above him suddenly lit up, and a faint light regiment floated down like snowflakes. The light auras landed into their star treasures. The king was dead. Both sides who were in the midst of fighting stopped at the same time. Duff immediately said, "Your Majesty is wise. With Mr. Xiaoda here, Tang Tian and the rest will definitely not be able to advance." In his eyes, Tang Tian's fist force was filled with flaws, but... "Stand up." Yen Yonglai's tone was calm. "You guys might not have the chance to return to Ursa Major constellation. Tang Tian is an unfathomable person. Until now, I still do not know how he was able to obtain the star power from the desolate barebone. Now that I think about it, the only mistake I made was that I did not expect that Andromeda constellation would actually have such a ferocious beast hibernating." What surprised him was that His Majesty was not too surprised, but instead released a carefree smile. Yen Yonglai shook his head. "I need to stay in this palace and stabilize the star power. Without the star power, everyone will crumble now." Halfway through, Tang Tian gathered all his strength and raised his fist. A series of compressed air ripples chased after him, exploding out densely, creating a sound. He suddenly asked, "How long more before our first batch of martial artists can enter Orion constellation?" Crane shook his head. "Thank you, Master Xiao. I am not blessed and am unable to accept it." Xiaoda's face revealed a look of surprise. It is rumored that although Prince Crane has never trained in the Empress Absolute Arts, but in the Crane sex martial techniques, his attainments are extremely profound. "Seeing you today, you truly live up to your reputation." "Your Majesty." Duff's tears fell like rain. Duff did not dare make a sound. Suddenly, Xiaoda's gaze congealed. His Majesty already had the intention to entrust him. Could it be? Bang. Yen Yonglai acted as though he did not hear anything and continued, "Wild beasts will definitely explode and hurt people. Just now, I suddenly realized we have underestimated others. Even my previous arrangements were underestimating them. You bring Aze and go find Commander Tuesday. As long as Commander 2 is able to take down the palace, then Orion constellation will be in the bag." Yen Yonglai slowly stood up, his tone sonorous, his white hair fluttering in the wind. "I want to tell the martial artists of Ursa Major constellation, although I am unable to invite another saint for them, but I, Yen Yonglai, am their king and will forever fight alongside them. Forever die in front of them." Yen Yonglai suddenly said, "You bring Aze, follow the nearest batch of martial artists, and go find Commander 2 at Orion constellation." Such a fast frequency. At the same time, his eyes squinted again and his figure retreated again. "This is an illusion." Ling Su's gaze was dull as he muttered to himself, "We must be in an illusion created by Xiaoda. He wants to use this illusion to lure us in." Just thinking about it made him tremble. Tang Tian's eyes turned red. His blood was boiling. It was as though he had been injected with chicken blood. He was completely immersed in an unprecedented fanaticism. As for the weakness of his shallow techniques and weak power to Tang Tian, it was not a problem. The current Tang Tian had the star power in his body surging. Even a normal punch would be extremely powerful. Furthermore, this fellow's physical body was also tyrannical to the point that Xiaoda was jealous. As for whether Xiaoda could receive it, he did not even think about it. A saint-level martial artist could not receive his techniques? What kind of joke was that? Although Tang Tian was full of confidence, he was very clear that he was definitely not a match for a saint-level martial artist. Tang Tian's speed decreased because he was gradually getting out of the fanaticism. His mind was gradually cooling down. On the other hand, Xiaoda's true power was greatly depleted. Hence, the speed of his techniques naturally slowed down. Their ears were not the only ones that were numb. Both of their scalps were numb. They stared blankly at the scene in front of them. No matter how they looked at it, they could not accept it. His heart was extremely weird. There was actually someone in this world who would try something that defied common sense. Very quickly Xiao understood a little. Fundamental martial techniques were extremely shallow. To a normal martial artist they naturally did not have much value. But its moves were simple enough, and when it attacked it was much faster than other moves. Furthermore, it was a fellow that was terrifyingly proficient in fundamental martial techniques, so its speed would reach an extremely shocking level. The concentrated and terrifying sounds of collisions were like hundreds of firecrackers being lit at the same time. It shook Crane and Ling Su's ears to the point of numbness. Xiao, who was enraged, was already prepared to counterattack. Crane also made his move. Tang Tian seemed to be able to see the back view of his great future. Such an opportunity was something that he dreamed of. Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were filled with flaws. Even a unique martial technique like Thousand Cleave Demonic Hand in front of Xiao had obvious flaws. Needless to say, Tang Tian was torturing himself. It could be said that the fundamental martial techniques were riddled with holes. Tang Tian did not give Xiao time to think. The surging star power in his body caused him to be filled with endless energy. Without thinking, he used his incomplete fundamental martial techniques without thinking. Tang Tian, who did not have the slightest bit of pressure, did not even look at Xiao's intention to make a move, and used all the fundamental martial techniques that he had been tossing and turning in a mess. Xiao felt that he was going crazy. No matter what, he had to enjoy himself first. But nothing had happened. Using an unreasonable method of attack, he was like a scoundrel. Everything, all the mysteries, all the beauty were stirred up into a foul atmosphere, stirred up into pieces. Xiao's true power was strong. But no matter how strong he was not as strong as 1/3 of the Ursa Major constellation's star power. Initially he ignored it. But as the battle became more intense, his true power was quickly depleting, and he had no choice but to dodge. He hated and loathed this kind of behavior. But compared to Tang Tian's attack, it was still slower by a beat. All these factors added up to create such a freak and created such a weird situation. But it was these fundamental martial techniques that were riddled with holes, that forced a saint-level martial artist to continuously retreat. Tang Tian suddenly jumped back and raised both of his hands. Because of one point, which was Tang Tian's attack frequency. Until his hair was cut, Xiao suddenly realized, and a trace of anger rose in his heart. He was a saint-level martial artist. Ordinary martial artists were like ants to him. Although he looked at the three of them differently because of their talents, but it was only because he valued the younger generation. In Xiao's heart he did not put the three of them in the same position as him. With a howl, Tang Tian pounced towards Xiao like a wolf or a tiger. This brat. Exactly how many times did he train in fundamental martial techniques? Xiao, who started to dodge, the frequency of his slashes immediately showed an obvious decrease. So comfortable. As expected of a saint-level martial artist. There were too many high-level martial techniques inside, and he had just touched the doorstep and was still far from being able to completely fuse them. Tang Tian did not have the slightest bit of fear because Xiao was a saint-level martial artist. On the contrary, he was too excited. Gory. This young man could not be any stronger. Stop. If Xiao knew what Tang Tian was thinking, he would definitely have a mouthful of blood rushing to his throat. Xiao thought for a long time and thought of a more suitable description. This crazy young man. Actually suppressed Xiao. But this asshole. Both of their attack speed dropped at the same time. Just as he was about to make his move, Tang Tian, who was in front of him, screamed, his aura exploding. Xiao was after all a saint-level martial artist. His eyes were shrewd and sharp and not something a normal martial artist could compare to. To be able to be like a torrential storm without a head or a tail. It was definitely not something that could be done without a brain. The most crucial point was that Tang Tian had an astonishing level of familiarity with fundamental martial techniques. An extremely terrifying level of familiarity. Tang Tian did not feel any pain, but Xiao was not so good. Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were already beyond recognition. Under the attacks of the torrential storm, Xiao moved around crazily, the palm blade in his hand slashing at an astonishing speed. At this time all the changes were meaningless, the only requirement for the slashes was speed. But Tang Tian's explosive increase in aura, it did not make sense. He was half a beat too slow. Xiao's heart was extremely shocked. He had seen all kinds of strong martial artists, but he had never seen anyone who would spend time and energy on fundamental martial techniques. Crane was also in a daze. Ah, yes. The reason why Xiaoda was being suppressed so badly was because of the fanatical Tang Tian. The increase in the frequency of his attacks was extremely astonishing. The originally terrifying frequency had reached a terrifying number, a number that Xiaoda had never seen before. Tang Tian's completely unreasonable attacks, adding the surging star power, caused Xiaoda's martial techniques to be useless, and he was dragged to the point where he could only compete with Tang Tian in speed. He had a stomach full of anger, the saint-level martial artist on him. He could not remember the last time he was in such a difficult situation. Every battle he would firmly control the rhythm of the battle. Everything between heaven and earth was under his control, even the dust in the air was firmly under his control. What made him feel even weirder was, in front of such a weird fundamental martial technique, he actually kept on retreating. The surging star power in Tang Tian's body was definitely not a joke. That terrifying energy undulation, even he was absolutely fearful. Tang Tian, who was like a ferocious tiger, completely fell into a demonic barrier. He felt that every drop of blood in his body was burning. The fundamental martial techniques that had already fused into his bones became faster and faster. The attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Xiaoda kept on retreating. Tang Tian's fundamental martial techniques were truly too different. With his eyesight he could see that within the fundamental martial techniques, there were high-level techniques, and could even deduce what Tang Tian was trying to do. Ling Su continued to be in a daze. So scary. How could this brat become even faster? What exactly happened? Xiaoda immediately realized his chance had come. Tang Tian did not know what the two of them were thinking. He was too comfortable, much more comfortable than training alone in the training grounds. Every time they collided, Tang Tian would feel the star power in his body heating up as though he was being massaged. Chapter 432. The two of them immediately felt relieved. Crane lowered his head to look. The crane sword in his hand was trembling intensely. A warm and gentle energy entered Crane's body from the sword hilt. After a few seconds he then reacted, his eyes opened wide. Not fighting anymore? We are fighting to the death, okay? Am I going to retaliate? I am being ignored. Who is the saint? He thought about his father who died young, thought about his mother's sorrow, thought about the loneliness of his childhood. Suddenly his palms became extremely hot, as though he was holding onto a red-hot iron. Welcome to my spirit domain, Silent Blade Lake. The blade light slashed. This made everyone feel danger. As though it had sensed Crane's thoughts, the crane sword's light aura suddenly exploded. The sword cry pierced through the air, a gust of wind blew, and the calm lake immediately started to ripple. Xiaoda felt that he was about to explode. Ever since he was young he had fought countless of times, but none of the battles were as ridiculous as this one and made him even angrier. Wait a minute, what did this fellow just say? A clear cry of a crane resonated in Crane's heart, straight to the clouds. Your light aura must be very dazzling, right? Ling Su also lowered his voice. Then what? To leave it hanging like this, it's even more disrespectful. It was the first time Crane felt such a strong sense of death, even though the opponent only raised the blade slightly. It was as though his world had suddenly lost all the sunlight, and the extreme negative emotions spread in his heart. Like a nimble and sharp black crane, as fast as lightning, he pecked out with his beak. The blade hilt was blue like a gem, and the blade body was covered in silver light. It was so exquisite that there were no flaws. Ling Su's eyes lit up. He could smell a familiar smell. Previously he did not understand what the faint smell was in his spear technique. But now he understood that was the smell of the spirit domain. Suddenly he felt that all the hard work that he had put in all these years was meaningless. I want to take on everything. I want to fulfill my father's unfulfilled wish. I want to tell the world I am his son and not the Empress' nephew. What would the complete Sacred Saint Galaxy look like? I am really looking forward to it. The sound of the collision seemed to resound directly in Ling Su's heart. An astonishing power came from the tip of the spear. He held onto the spear body tightly. The spear body and his palms were violently rubbing against each other, causing his skin to be lacerated and his flesh to be mangled. The terrifying true power entered his meridians, causing Ling Su to groan, but he opened his mouth. It was as if he had suddenly discovered that the goal he had been yearning for was no longer so unreachable. Unknowingly, he had already grown to a level that he had never dared to imagine before. The huge force caused Ling Su and Flamingo's bodies to directly fly out. Sadness, loneliness, failure, and disappointment flooded him like a tide. Crane's face twitched and said softly, "That's not good, right? Aren't you disrespecting me? I am still a saint." Crane nodded his head. "That's true." Although the two of them lowered their voices, Xiaoda's hearing was very powerful. He heard every single word. His face was ashen and his lungs were about to explode. His fists unconsciously clenched. Xiaoda's tone was indifferent. No one could tell if he was happy or angry. It was as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. Crane's body trembled. He stared at the crane sword in his hand. The crane sword was releasing a dazzling light aura. The sword body was trembling. An astonishing fighting intent was emitted from the sword body. The corners of his mouth curled into a heartfelt smile. "How can I give up so easily? Even if you are a blade saint. Let's not fight anymore. I thought of a problem. I need to think about it. You find little Crane and Ling Su to fight for a while. Wait for me to think it through. We will continue. Which one of you can help me?" Tang Tian shouted. He immediately sat down and ignored Xiaoda. Huala huala. The heavenly crane sword principle appeared in his mind. Crane's gaze was clear. He held onto his sword and stood proudly. His loose martial attire fluttered without any wind. His aura was at its peak. The wind gathered around him. Like a crane's wings, it lifted his body up. He was extremely light. Crane quietly opened up his 5 fingers. The wind swept past his fingers, bringing with it a warm and moist air. "You were once a saint's sword. Are you so eager to fight?" Pa pa pa. A long and slender palm held onto the transparent blue blade hilt. The blade was raised upwards. A silver blade floated in front of Xiaoda. Xiaoda looked at Tang Tian in a daze. His mind could not process what was happening. Following the trembling sound from the sword body, Crane slid forward. He welcomed the silver blue blade aura that was filled with death chi. He thrusted his sword forward. "My blade has been nurtured in the still blade lake for close to 10 years. Today I can see the light of day again. I hope that you will not disappoint me." A clear cry of a crane suddenly came out from the sword body. "I never thought that I would open up the spirit domain again. It was actually because of the 3 of you." Xiaoda sighed. "Seems like I have not improved much these few years." The silver spear pierced out with an astonishing rotation. Ling Su felt that the world had quietened down. His face was emotionless. Like a silver rainstorm, the silver fishes jumped out of the lake and pounced towards Xiaoda. Every silver fish turned into a silver scale as soon as they flew out of the water. Tens of thousands of silver scales merged into one. Ling Su and Crane were stunned by Tang Tian's sudden call for them to stop. Martial artists with higher realms could more easily control the rhythm of the battle. "Thank you, Crane Sword." Ding. If he could maintain this speed, wouldn't he be able to keep suppressing Xiaoda? No, if he could be even faster, so fast that Xiaoda found it difficult to parry, wouldn't that be even more powerful? Xiaoda could not help but stare at Ling Su. Blood splattered across the sky. He blocked it. He had many flaws, but he needed time to make use of them. Xiaoda didn't have time, so he couldn't counterattack. If you wanted him to have no time to think, then you had to be fast enough to completely squeeze out the opponent's time to think. What a scoundrel. They were strong in many aspects, but if one were to ask what the strongest aspect of a saint was, it would undoubtedly be the Spirit Society. The Spirit Society represented the saint's understanding towards battles and martial techniques. The deeper the understanding towards martial techniques, the stronger the saint's Spirit Society would be. It was rumored that the spirit domains of the top saint-level martial artists could even be a complete world. While he was excited, an extremely daring idea popped up in his mind. His bloodied palm firmly held onto the silver spear. The bright and clean silver spear body was covered with long blood scars. It was the blood scars from when the silver spear flew out of his palm. Xiaoda could not believe the result in front of him. He did not hold back at all in that attack. But if it was not powerful, how could he suppress a saint? Ling Su felt Xiaoda's gaze on him, but he was not afraid at all. "Focus your attack on me." The blade aura shattered. At the saint level, everyone's true power did not differ much. What was competing was the strength of the Spirit Society. The strength of the Spirit Society, in other words, was the difference in realms. So I can attack so fast. The stronger the spirit society, the higher the realms, the heaven and earth are mine to use. This sentence sounded mysterious, but in other words it was very simple. It was the accumulation of advantages. In the same environment with the same strength, a higher realm meant that he would be able to discover more flaws, and find more factors that were beneficial to him. All these seemingly superficial things would allow him to gain a slight advantage. When these advantages continued to accumulate, he would be able to control the situation more easily. Feng Ling was like the wind, the silver spear was like the stars, and the young man was like fire. Xiaoda's heart was suddenly burning. He did not have any passion for power, but towards martial techniques he was filled with fanaticism. He had lived in seclusion in the mountains for so many years, all for the sake of pursuing the path of martial techniques. Ling Su's orange pupils suddenly lit up with a ball of flames. Flamingo rushed out in a flash, dragging a blazing trail of fire. The white-robed figure crouched down, his long silver hair fluttering in the air. "That's right, that's it. Are you all right?" Crane stared at Xiaoda and asked without turning his head. Tang Tian sat on the ground, deep in thought, and completely did not notice the situation around him. Saints were undoubtedly the strongest martial artists. Their true power was tyrannical, their understanding of martial techniques was extraordinary, and they had their own spirit domains. The silver-blue light aura lit up again and slashed down. Ding! At the corner of Crane's mouth, a trace of blood flowed out. His calm eyes flashed with an excited light aura. A saint-level martial artist's full power attack was actually blocked by him and Ling Su's combined attack. All the figures that were once unreachable were now right in front of him, within his reach. Ling Su was not afraid, his figure on the back of the bird was not moving, that fierce face, angry eyes opened wide, an imposing aura recklessly fluttering his silver hair. He was actually able to suppress a saint-level martial artist. This result was completely out of Tang Tian's imagination. Fundamental martial techniques. How could they suppress a saint-level martial artist? Oh, why didn't Xiaoda counterattack? What was he doing? Why didn't he counterattack? Oh, he was blocking my attack. Why didn't he counterattack after blocking? Oh, because I punched out again and then he went to block my fist. What happened after blocking? He still did not counterattack because my fist arrived again. Facing the gale, his badly mutilated palm tightly gripped onto the spear body. The doubts in his mind suddenly cleared up, the star power in his body surged. He stood up immediately, wishing he could roar towards the sky. Tang Tian was excited until now he was sure that the thing that he was messing around with was very powerful. This path was not wrong to choose. Xiaoda's face did not change, but his heart was not as calm. The layer of silver frost almost froze his blade aura. If not, how could Crane's sword break his blade aura? Tang Tian used to think so too in the past battles. It made him believe that it was the truth. A nimble black figure floated over, thrusting his sword out. How we blocked it again. Although he already knew that Ling Su's spear technique was closely related to the silver frost mount, but when the strange silver frost appeared he was still shocked. That's right, he was able to suppress Xiaoda. It was because he was fast. Crane, who flew out, his throat tasted sweet and he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His chest, however, was filled with lofty sentiments. It was like this. That's great. Tang Tian became excited. Such a profound question, to be able to think of it himself, that was too powerful. As a saint, he knew much more than ordinary martial artists. Furthermore, the silver frost mount was only a few hundred qi dissipated. In the battle with Tang Tian he had consumed a lot of energy, but the recovery speed of a saint-level martial artist was not something that a non-saint-level martial artist could imagine and compare with. This was very brainless and stupid, but this was the martial arts of the godlike young man. He suddenly retreated backwards, trying to widen the distance between him and Tang Tian. The blade aura exploded into a ball of shattered aura. Tang Tian's body must have been modified by a high-level blood meridian. If not, he would definitely not be able to withstand Tang Tian's violent attacks. 300 fundamental attacks in a second and 300 spear attacks in a second were two completely different concepts. For example, Ling Su's pointed sea spear was actually a special technique, and could only be considered as one technique, because the true power in Ling Su's body could only be used once. His attacks became faster and faster, to the point that the naked eye could not catch them. Under such a berserk attack, the silver-blue blade aura trembled violently. Xiao suddenly thought of Ling Su's assault. That indomitable desperation and recklessness, left a deep impression on him. From this point Tang Tian could not compare. But Tang Tian's face did not have any teeth clenched, no anger, no killing intent, only concentration. He was like an honest man, earnestly and persistently doing one thing, that's all. Anyway, it was just a matter of one blade. In Tang Tian's mind there was only one thought: how can I be faster? Defeat me? While Xiao was distracted, Tang Tian had already rushed in front of him. This world is too complicated, I can't understand it, there are too many changes in this world, I can't see through it. This world is in chaos, I can't understand it. But it doesn't matter, I can bury my head and walk my own path, I can wave my fists, I can display my own martial techniques and not care about this world. And Tang Tian's 300 fundamental attacks meant that his true power needed to be used 300 times. Without an outstanding blood meridian modified body, it was impossible to bear. Under the power of a saint, a spear technique that could cause a saint to fear, other than the 12 ecliptic palaces, honorable martial alliance and onyx soul, there were definitely no other inheritances that could do it. With Ling Su and Crane's condition, blocking another 2 blades would be their limit. In truth, for the battle to drag to such a stage, it already made him extremely surprised. Xiao suddenly thought of a problem and his face changed. Xiao's escape was very sudden, Ling Su and Crane did not expect it at all, and were dumbstruck. A saint would actually escape? Tang Tian's legs were using fundamental light body techniques, but the frequency was so fast that it caused people to be flabbergasted. Xiao's blade once again rose up, he took a deep breath, his face filled with killing intent. End the battle quickly. Xiao calculated in his heart he only needed a few more blades and the 2 of them would definitely collapse. As for Tang Tian, from what he saw he definitely could not continue, that was why he used such a clumsy excuse to stop. Tang Tian acted as though he did not see the abnormality of the blade aura. His fundamental martial techniques were at an astonishing rate, attacking like the wind. The killing intent on Xiao's face congealed, his expression froze. Xiao had already regained his senses. For a non-saint martial artist to suppress a saint martial artist, he must have expended all his energy, if not, how could it be possible? Tang Tian must be exhausted by now. Without thinking he was like a cheetah suddenly leaping out. He did not even consider Tang Tian at the moment, although his true power had been consumed a lot, but at least he could unleash 5 blades with all his strength. Chance. And such a high-level blood meridians could not be bought in the market. But for some reason the concentration and seriousness on Tang Tian's face made Xiao feel a chill down his spine. The silver-blue blade aura slashed straight towards Tang Tian. In a second more than 200 fundamental attacks crashed onto the blade aura. Suddenly a figure flashed in his eyes, he quivered so fast. The moment the fist and blade aura clashed, Tang Tian's figure flashed. The terrifying power penetrated straight through the blade aura. Tang Tian did not feel anything. Following the force of the blade aura he retreated and his hands changed at an astonishing speed. The fist immediately became a palm, fingers flicking sideways, body pushing forward, side kick. His attacks were faster than before, but the current frequency was obviously not enough, it had to be faster. He did not have time to think, he did not have time to think about other things, his eyes were only on the blade aura. Bang! A familiar figure dashed in front of him from the side. Tang Tian buried his head. Without looking he gathered all the energy in his body and attacked crazily. He was like a person training alone, using all his strength to unleash fundamental martial techniques. Too scary. Xiao jumped in fright, he suddenly jumped back, turned and ran. The true power in his body could only allow him to unleash his blade twice, and with Tang Tian's ferocious state, these 2 blades would definitely not be able to injure him in the slightest. Tang Tian looked at Xiao, rubbing his palms, his eyes filled with fighting intent. He shouted, "Old man, you're dead. Just now I already thought of a way to defeat you. You are destined to be defeated by this godlike young man." He completely ignored Xiao. Change people. As long as his true power recovered and he killed his way back, the 3 of them would not be able to escape. But other than Tang Tian, who could train in fundamental martial techniques for 5 years. Without the terrifying proficiency, how could there be such a speed? Other than Tang Tian, who could not be moved by the outside world and persevere in such brainless attacks, Ling Su's expression was complicated and muttered to himself, "That is a true hero." In any case, it was a saint blade and could be sold as scrap metal for a good price. He didn't expect that Ling Su would look at it for several hours. After he finished, he threw the book to Crane and went to the side to think. It is a fundamental martial technique, but it is too fast. How is it compared to your pointed sea spear? Crane's face congealed. This fellow was actually reading so enthusiastically, causing Crane to feel weird. Powerful martial techniques all have names. Crane guided patiently. Crazy Tang, what are you planning to name your martial technique? Crane asked. Crane took the book with a face of suspicion, and after skimming through a few pages, he was deeply attracted by the book. This book, no, to be more accurate, it was a notebook. It was Xiaoda's daily training experience. After a while, the two of them gradually regained their senses. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Very strong. Ling Su looked at Tang Tian, who was happily collecting his spoils of war, and said, "This is his martial technique and only he can do it." Tang Tian, who was not resigned to not gaining anything, muttered in his heart. A rascal's fighting style. Was indeed very vivid, but brainless, that's right. Tang Tian nodded his head. The three of them looked at the light pillar in the distance. Forget it, let's hurry up. Crane, who was already in despair, gave up on his suggestion. In truth, if not for Xiaoda wanting to use his blade to form blade wings, and let himself escape with Tang Tian's strength, it would be wishful thinking to want to destroy a saint blade. What kind of book could make these two fellows who never read, to obediently hold on to the book and read it? Although Xiaoda was carelessly killed by Tang Tian, his own realm was still there, and was not something the three of them could compare to. Even if Xiaoda trained in blade techniques, it was still a huge inspiration and reference for Crane. That was the martial technique that belonged to Tang Tian. But in a short span of a second he had suffered over 300 attacks, and the true power in Xiaoda's body was instantly destroyed. It was completely destroyed, in a mess. His meridians were broken inch by inch. Chapter 436. The dense and surging golden star power, transformed into a golden vortex, frantically absorbing the surrounding star power. The other two also revealed looks of fatigue, but nodded their heads at the same time. But it is truly painful. What a huge formation. Ling Su was filled with ridicule, his killing intent soaring. But you are right, Crazy Tang is truly powerful. If not for him, I would not have understood it so quickly. Ling Su could not help but clench his fists tightly. Ha, I finally understand. All the despair is not arranged by fate, it is what your so-called logic tells you. You tell yourself your talent is ordinary and will never be able to catch up to others. You tell yourself how miserable and pitiful you are. Ha, then you can die, you can bury yourself. I don't want to. Draco Constellation's vibrating mountain army was named after that. Crane was startled. Saying that, Crane's heart could not help but feel moved. He thought about himself. His father had passed away early, leaving him with a deep trauma. His childhood was shrouded in deep loneliness and shadows. The distorted figure wrapped in flames suddenly froze. But an even crazier battle rumbled in all directions. Crane's face was filled with shock and did not speak for a long time. Ah! Long Zhu laughed out loud. That's right, I will punish myself with a cup. That's right. Its rise is flourishing and its fall is also sudden. In front of him, a middle-aged man sighed. There are no undefeated dynasties under the heavens. Even the strong Scorpio dynasty was turned into ashes. This Ursa Major constellation, such a pity. Long Zhu picked up the wine cup, downed it in one gulp, half drunk. Yan Yonglai is a hero, but I feel that the most pity is that I cannot fight with Tu Qing. The grizzly bear army is hailed as the strongest army in the polar lands. Not being able to personally experience it is a lifetime regret. Good. The middle-aged man stood up. Tang Tian was tightly wrapped by the surging star power. The light pillar that pierced through the clouds trembled intensely as though it could collapse at any time. Long Zhu sat barefoot on the ground, his clothes half open, his black hair draped over his shoulders. A beautiful concubine beside him gently fanned herself. Do you know about the Walking Dead? That's it. The corners of Ling Su's mouth twitched. He wanted to force a smile, but it was uglier than crying. Actually, Great Elder treats me pretty well. He gives me whatever I want. If I hadn't met Crazy Tang, if I hadn't done something so ugly with Gu Shui, I would still be a walking corpse. Bastard. You're dead. Ling Su flew into a rage. Tang Tian calmed himself down. The burning star power was like a wild beast that had lost control. Tang Tian's idea was simple. He would absorb the star power into his body and use it to tame and assimilate them. I was at a loss. I did not know where to go. I just walked forward. Walking and walking, I did not remember how long I walked and did not know where I walked to. When I was hungry, I would kill star spirit beasts. When I was thirsty, I would find a water source. I would kill some bandits. When the great clan elder of the Gu family met me, he thought I was a barbarian. I do not know how to convince you to give up burning. If you do not give up, I will fight with you. Tang Tian paused for a moment. I will not let Ursa Major constellation be destroyed. Bing and the rest will do better than you. Although maybe that Ursa Major constellation is no longer the Ursa Major constellation that you protect. Ling Su's face that was filled with arrogance suddenly froze. He turned his face in a stupefied manner. Crane immediately saw the throbbing veins on Ling Su's forehead. Crane immediately reminded him, Hey, you were the one who made me say that. Ling Su regained his composure. He turned his face with a thick self-ridicule. This should be called bravery. I actually learned it from a crazy young man. All these years I have truly lived like a dog. At that moment the wind blew up the veil. The light pillar in the distance suddenly trembled violently. Long Zhu's face immediately became gloomy and then he laughed. The blazing hot current frantically surged into Tang Tian's body. The three of them had solemn expressions. This was their respect for Yen Yonglai. He raised the wine cup in front of him and drank it in one gulp. He laughed. After this battle we will drink to our heart's content. Let's go. The martial spirit seemed to be releasing an astonishing fighting intent. The intense fighting intent caused the surrounding flames to distort. That. So hopeless. Ling Su, how bad is your talent? Crane had a face of sympathy. Tang Tian extended out his palm and placed it on the light pillar. It was as though he was touching the pillar of fire. The extremely hot heat caused him to subconsciously want to retreat. But he endured it. Not only that, he forcefully inserted his palm into the light pillar. Interesting. Crane revealed a warm smile. Previously he only felt as though he was in a sea of fire. But now he felt as though his body was a blazing furnace. And he still had to bite the bullet and work hard to assimilate the combusting star power. Crane said softly, For him to be like this, it is truly not easy. Let me. Tang Tian said. The star power of Ursa Major constellation in his body was the densest, and Ursa Major constellation was the closest to him. Out of the three of them, only he could stop the combusting of Ursa Major constellation. I never thought that someone would beat me to it. Interesting. Speak. Crane wanted to say something but stopped. Ling Su and Crane guarded the surroundings, the two of them preventing anyone from attacking Tang Tian. This fellow is truly a freak. Ling Su could not help but say, he can't even burst like this. Along the way they met with countless of obstructions. All of the martial artists with weak strength pounced on them like a tide, completely disregarding their lives. The three of them continued to kill and finally reached the palace. The star power in his body suddenly surged out. My heart is filled with hatred, I want revenge. Even if I am as stupid as a pig, I will crawl to the front of that sinner. If I am destined to die, I will die under the spear of that sinner. No matter what, I will definitely not bury myself. Ling Su raised his eyebrows with a face of insolence. Huh? Isn't it powerful? Your spirit must have been baptized. These people are truly difficult to deal with. Tang Tian smacked his lips, his expression somewhat moved. Even though you know you will die, you are still working so hard, you are truly powerful. Looking at the light pillar that shot into the sky from Ursa Major Palace, the three of them revealed looks of respect. Long Zhu looked through the veil and saw the light pillar that shot into the sky from Ursa Major Palace, and could not help but sigh. Yen Yonglai was a tyrant of his generation, but I never thought that he would end up like this. In the blink of an eye, Ursa Major constellation has declined to the point of being defeated. It truly makes people sigh with sorrow. Tang Tian's entire body trembled, the clothes on his body turned into ashes and the light pillar became sluggish. The star power in Tang Tian's body suddenly revolved. Crane was stunned by Ling Su's sinister look. Crane looked at Ling Su in shock. The vibrating mountain lizard at the front of the group was much larger than the rest. On its back was a pavilion, and from the veil hanging down, there was a faint sound of music coming out. Ling Su shook his head and said, "For Ursa Major Constellation he disregarded everything and gave up everything. He is a true hero. As his enemy we can only give it our all and disregard everything to be worthy of this victory. For such a hero to die fighting with all his might, there will be regrets but there will be no remorse." Suddenly the two of them stopped. It was as though he was in a sea of fire. He felt that it was extremely familiar, as though he was looking at the depths of the palace inside the sea of fire, the martial spirit that was constantly burning. Truly a hero worthy of respect. Crane looked at the light pillar and muttered, "For his own constellation, for the future he burned himself to death and we have to destroy his final burning. It makes me feel complicated." "You lost." Tang Tian rushed to the martial spirit that was wrapped in flames and shouted, "I admire your determination to fight, but everything is over. Blood should not be spilled for meaningless battles. Ursa Major Constellation should not be destroyed like this." Chapter 437. Yes. A few martial artists replied and jumped down. He looked into the distance, his thoughts flying. He was still young and inexperienced, leading Draco Constellation's strongest army, had always been a controversial position. He urgently needed a victory to stabilize his position. He was looking forward to the expressions of the people and what kind of scene it would be. Sima Xiao laughed. "People always need something to chase after." "Do you plan to participate in the clan elders meeting?" Qiu Zhijun asked. Qiu Zhijun suddenly said, "Between Long Zhu and Tang Tian, who do you think will win?" "It's a pity I cannot personally witness the battle. It truly is a pity." Sima Zhao's face was filled with regret. His fingers quickly swept past the desserts, and the desserts flew into his mouth like raindrops. Mr. Wang's expression was calm. He had seen such expressions too many times and was long used to it. "I don't know." Sima Xiao shook his head. "But Wang Yi took away the newest spirit general. I am very curious about their performance." "If that's the case, then your target can only be Tang Tian." Qiu Zhijun was surprised. "Speaking about it, I have always found it strange. Tang Tian and we do not have any conflict, we mind our own business. I do not understand why you always pay attention to them and even fear them." Sima Xiao laughed. "Wrong, I am not gloomy, I am unscrupulous. As long as I can win, I need to be open and above board, and I will be open and above board. Furthermore, I am very interested in the spirit generals in Tang Tian's hands. If we are able to create even more powerful spirit military generals, then that will be even more powerful." Qiu Zhijun reported. "The vibrating mountain army has already entered Ursa Major Constellation. They will quickly meet up with Tang Tian and the rest." Qiu Zhijun continued. "With your personality, since you have already treated him as your opponent, then you will definitely lay down a trap. I understand Long Zhu is the enemy you prepared for Tang Tian?" Sima Xiao frowned after a moment. "Actually, I do not understand why, but every time I see Tang Tian or hear news about Tang Tian, I will feel that he will be a threat to me in the future." The surname Long in Draco Constellation was a big surname. Almost 70% of the higher-ups of Draco Constellation were surnamed Long. Long Zhu was of noble birth. His grandfather was one of the two saints of Draco Constellation in the past. However, he did not have much interest in cultivation since he was young. Instead, he stayed in the red light district and did not do any proper work. Sima Xiao stopped and placed the desserts back into his plate and spoke with a serious expression. "Because I have high hopes for them." His father had no choice but to harden his heart and send him to the army, wanting him to suffer for a few years. Unexpectedly, after a few years when he returned home, it was as if he had changed into a different person, and his bearing was extraordinary. While his father was pleasantly surprised, he began to secretly try to push him to an important position. "What are you going to do?" Sima Xiao said disapprovingly. "Two stubborn old fogies talking about all these useless things, it's a waste of time." Oh, they were too old to keep up with the times. It didn't matter if one was old, but if one was stubborn when one was old, then that was stupid. Besides, I don't like people without initiative. Sima Xiao scoffed. "Don't tell me you expect him to be loyal? The bigger his ambition, the better. The bigger his ambition, the more he dares to make a move. He has the ability and ambition, that is the best. I can support him to become the Heavenly Dragon King. Control? From the start, I have never thought of controlling the 5 polar domains. Even if I were to go to such a poor and broken place, I would be too lazy to go." The change in Ursa Major Constellation happened in just a few days. Facing such a huge change, the entire Draco constellation was at a loss. In the 5 polar domains, in terms of fighting power, Ursa Major constellation was the strongest. In terms of overall strength, Cepheus constellation and Cassiopeia constellation merged to form the immortal Martial constellation was undoubtedly the number one. And Ursa Minor constellation and Draco constellation were lacking by a large margin. No problem. The middle-aged man said straightforwardly. Mr. Wang ordered a few martial artists beside him. Go, get rid of all those people who are in the way. If they were able to subdue him, it would be of great help to the master. Long Zhu was a person who held a high position at such a young age, and his future was limitless. If he managed it well, he might be able to become the Heavenly Dragon King. You have high hopes. Qiu Zhijun was surprised. Lupus constellation is just one of the most declining constellations in the southern sky's 42 constellations. Even Andromeda constellation is just a northern sky constellation. With such a small power, I truly cannot see what is it about Tang Tian that is worthy of you being so fearful and optimistic about. It is because he is not mature, that is why we need to test it out. Sima Xiao stopped and said unhappily, we have wasted too much time previously. It was not easy for us to develop a unique fighting method, but in the end we spent all our time scheming, and wasted all our time on internal strife. If in those years we had placed our focus on researching on even more powerful spirit generals, who knows how much stronger we would be. This statement made Qiu Zhijun even more surprised. Tang Tian's strength is not bad, his potential is huge, and he is an outstanding martial artist. This I admit. But for you to actually view him as your opponent, I am unable to understand. Do you really think that your path will work? Spirit generals are strong and martial artists are weak. There has never been a good ending. Qiu Zhijun was a traditional martial artist and did not reject spirit generals, nor did he like them. And the clan union's path of using spirit generals as the main path to him was already a crooked path. What if he wins? Qiu Zhijun suddenly said. Team a family. Long Zhu's methods were extremely powerful, and very quickly managed the vibrating mountain army like an iron bucket. Mr. Wang sneered in his heart. Long Zhu was extremely ambitious, and was unwilling to be left out. If not for that, how could he convince him? And Long Zhu looked to be carefree, but in truth he had many schemes in his heart. Such a person, if they did not let him see their own strength, how could he be convinced? The elites of Ursa Major constellation were all out, and the current territory was empty. If they could take advantage of the situation, there was a huge possibility of taking down Ursa Major constellation. Even if they could not take down the entire Ursa Major constellation, taking down a few planets would still be a huge achievement. Long Zhu's skin was white, his eyes were long and narrow, the corners of his eyes were slightly raised, his long hair draped over his shoulders. Although he was a man, he had a rather charming aura. Because of that, he received the love of many ladies. Qiu Zhijun was surprised. Isn't the technique not mature yet? Who knows? Sima Xiao looked at his senior brother and smiled. But it is worth the risk. This is the only chance for the clan union to rise up. Comparing martial techniques and treasures, we are not the opponent of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Comparing armies, we are not the opponent of Leo Constellation. Comparing blood meridians, we are not the opponent of Onyx Soul. We need something of our own to be able to become stronger. Although this path is unknown, but at least it seems to be the most likely path. And just at that time, the original commander of the Vibrating Mountain Army contracted a strange illness, and had no choice but to select a new commander. Long Zhu consecutively defeated a few candidates, and became the commander of Draco Constellation's strongest army. I will have to trouble Mr. Wang with those small fishes. Long Zhu bowed slightly and smiled at the middle-aged man. Furthermore, he had a strong ally. Qiu Zhijun understood the fate of the two clan elders and suddenly said, 12 seats, you have already obtained the support of 9 seats. I am curious, why did you not snatch the position of alliance leader? Actually, you do not want to be under others, even if it is the Honorable Martial Alliance, Onyx Soul or Leo Constellation, you are not willing to lower your head. Qiu Zhijun said indifferently, teacher said that your character is the true pride, and indeed he was right. They did not encounter any enemies along the way, which was completely different from what everyone had expected. Where did this heavy army come from? One of Long Zhu's generals gestured vividly and everyone burst out laughing. Many people muttered in their hearts. Everyone laughed even louder and some people even had tears in their eyes. It was a mess. For this group of recruits, when they encountered an actual enemy, they would never be able to perform as they usually did in training. Long Zhu truly has some standards. This vibrating mountain army seems to be much stronger than I thought. The order was immediately passed down. All the mountain-shaking lizards lowered their bodies and raised their heads. The martial artists on their backs all had solemn expressions. Han Bingning stood with her sword in her hand without saying a word. She turned around and glanced at the light pillar in the distance before looking away. Everyone get ready. At least we did not come too late. Liang Qiu heaved a sigh of relief. His face had a trace of blood, but his expression was calm. Wang Yi only felt the ground beneath his feet trembling, the sky and earth spinning. He was shocked, his body almost flew out, and an orderly roar sounded out in his ears. After the initial shock, Long Zhu quickly calmed down. Seeing the chaos in the enemy's army, he could not help but laugh. So it's a group of amateurs. That power just now was truly terrifying. Alan did not think too much. To him, obeying orders was the most important. Everything in front of the torrent would be completely crushed. But in the eyes of Long Zhu and the rest, it made them unable to restrain their laughter. Yes. Everyone answered loudly. Fight! 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 The surrounding martial artists all relaxed and laughed out loud. Sima Xianxia crossed his arms, like a mist floating in the air. He gave off a sinister feeling. Seems like the clan union's strength is much stronger than I thought. They are obviously stupid to the point of not wanting their lives. Long Zhu's expression became solemn. Prepare to charge. The vibrating mountain army was Draco Constellation's strongest army. Every single one of them had rich battle experience. Seeing such a recruit army, it was like seeing a big joke causing an uproar. Good. Long Zhu clapped his hands and laughed. For us to watch this battle, we will naturally liven things up. Li Gu, let the children give the brave warriors a boost. He flew out of the pavilion, his true power surging. He said sternly, General's orders, the entire army will be there to boost the morale. Steady, steady. The distance between both parties was quickly decreasing. The vibrating mountain lizard was frantically increasing its speed. And when both parties collided, the vibrating mountain lizard's speed would increase to its maximum. Yo, they are starting to charge at us. A military general seemed to have discovered a new continent and said excitedly. The four martial artists beside Wang Yi looked to be weak but were actually relatively calm. Charge. The four of them met with the obstruction of two King Bear martial artists, and after spending a great deal of effort, they were able to obtain victory, and the four of them suffered different degrees of injuries. But I feel that we need to give them a good lesson and let them understand what is called a charge. Bing did not say a word. He rode on Sky Tiger and rushed to the front. Long Zhu's vibrating mountain army unexpectedly stopped, and four martial artists rushed out from the troops and flew towards the palace. Long Zhu's reaction was extremely fast and said solemnly, Everyone turn right, stay alert, there is an army approaching. The enemy's military general, how amateurish are they? In that moment the last bit of haze in everyone's heart dissipated. All of them rubbed their fists, waiting for the enemy to rush in front of them, and then they would give them a head-on blow. And the four people who suddenly rushed in were also very calm. Immediately the surroundings became chaotic. The roars of the squad leaders immediately exploded out, filling the entire army. 500 vibrating mountain lizards rhythmically patted the ground, as though they were beating a drum. Interesting, who knows, it might really be a fierce battle. A swift and fierce-looking martial artist beside Wang Yi replied, Yes. Or maybe it was a long-distance training. The huge vibrating mountain army actually did not make a single sound. So, when Long Zhu and the rest saw that the enemy was so far away, and yet they started to rush forward in a disorderly manner, that was why they laughed out loud. The troops behind them, after the initial chaos, started to become neat and tidy. After all, their daily training was extremely strict and all of the students were picked out from 100, and their qualities were relatively outstanding. With the order, a loud bang sounded out. The hundreds of vibrating mountain lizards' feet exerted force at the same time, converging into a muffled sound, causing Wang Ye's chest to feel stuffy. The vibrating mountain lizards were extremely large, but their movements were extremely agile. Under the high-speed charge, the impact produced was incomparable. And the scene of hundreds of vibrating mountain lizards madly rushing at the same time was extremely shocking, like an unstoppable flood. With such a long distance, by the time the enemy rushed over, they would be exhausted and powerless, waiting to be slaughtered. Pay attention to your position. The roars mixed with the muffled sound of the ground trembling, causing Wang Yi to feel as though he was in a raging wave, and could not help but be overwhelmed with shock. His gaze swept across Long Zhu and the others. All of them had excited and ferocious expressions on their faces. Chapter 439. The surrounding military generals, upon seeing the disheveled and crazy general rushing at the front, their eyes immediately turned red. He immediately turned to look at the right side of the troops, where a silver army that was flickering with light seemed to have rushed out from the void. With classes as units under Bing's command, they continuously rushed out from the defensive line, like blades, continuously stabbing into the vibrating mountain army. The vibrating mountain army that had lost its general was slowly being cut up, separated, and dismembered. Furthermore, it was the best opportunity for them to fight. His unparalleled was to charge. When the vibrating mountain army was distracted by the Lupus army, Bing suddenly gave the order to speed up. It was the first order he had given since the start of the battle. Charge. The speed of the Lupus army caused Long Zhu to be shocked. And it was obvious that the opponent was a well-trained army. Even when they were charging, their formation was still as neat as a ruler. Bing had been the chief instructor for so many years, and his understanding of the recruits far surpassed the other military generals. He was very clear to throw the recruits into a cruel and intense battle was to seek death. If they were to clash head-on with the vibrating mountain army, even with Bing's command they would still be defeated. Long Zhu's heart suddenly surged with a cold intent, although he did not know the opponent's assault tactic. But just from the formation of the army, it made him understand that the opponent was definitely strong. He continued to command the students and started to cut up the opponent's army. The extremely tight defensive formation was airtight. Bing's cold voice could be heard by the entire team. With a few flashes, he grabbed onto a few mechanical spirit weapons that were muddle-headed, and threw them back to the team behind him. From the start, Bing did not bet on the group of students from the Sky Martial Wolf Academy. To him, it was the best opportunity for him to fight. Furthermore, he had the trump card of the Lupus army equipped with the Andromeda battle gown. He had sufficient confidence. From start to finish, Bing was extremely calm. Often, a few mechanical spirit weapons would rush at the vibrating mountain lizard at the same time. These hot-blooded youths had even forgotten their usual martial techniques, and only instinctively used brute force. Xiao Wu. Defend. Long Zhu's heart was filled with despair. The vibrating mountain lizard's speed had already increased. Its astonishing body made it unstoppable when it charged, but this also meant that it had another weakness. Once it increased its speed, it was almost impossible to change directions. But he had already lost the advantage of speed and was trapped in the formation in imminent danger. What was worse was that the gap that he created was quickly filled up by Little Five. Long Zhu's gaze landed on the silver flickering strange battle robes. The Andromeda battle robes. That was the Andromeda battle robes. It must definitely be the effect of the Andromeda battle robes. Could it be the effect of the Andromeda battle robes was actually invisibility? Long Zhu bellowed and took the lead. The martial artists behind him continuously released rays of light auras. Like raindrops, they entered Long Zhu's body. Over 10 m tall gigantic bronze shields, on top of them crisscrossed sharp spikes. It was extremely terrifying, like a bronze wall with spikes. And beside them there were half-squatting substitutes ready to provide support at any time. And behind them there was a 15 m long empty space, half-squatting with shields defending mechanical spirit weapons. Their mission was to deal with the enemies that were attempting to jump into the formation from the sky. Bing had racked his brains and made all sorts of arrangements just for the current situation. Very quickly, the vibrating mountain army was sliced into 10 pieces. They frantically rushed forward, wanting to rush out of the encirclement, but the enemy had too many people and their coordination was gradually becoming better. The vibrating mountain army felt that the rope binding them was getting tighter and tighter. Bang! After experiencing the long-distance charge, the mentality of this group of recruits had already gradually adjusted. This time the acceleration was just barely passable. Bing knew the true test had just begun. The vibrating mountain army had not regained their senses from the sneak attack, and did not place the rookie army in front of them in their eyes. As for the mechanical army that Bing was leading, they did not think too much. although the youths were not calm and experienced enough, but they were full of drive. Most importantly, they had an overwhelming advantage in numbers. Bang bang bang. So scary. Abandon your mounts. Kill. Third class 1 attack. But at that moment Long Zhu had no path of retreat. If he waited for the Lupus army to turn around, then all of them would fall. Kill. Not good, there's an ambush. Long Zhu's eyes twitched. His mechanical spirit weapon instantly flew into the air, and he relaxed. That's great. It did not affect the line of defense behind him. He knew that the opponent was strong, but he did not expect that the opponent's assault would be so ridiculously strong. The Lupus army did not have any intention to attack. Tang Yi's mission was actually just to attack. Could it be that Master from the start planned to use this army for the Sky Martial Wolf Academy's youths to train? Everyone's face changed. No matter how dangerous the situation was in the past, Master had never asked them to give up on the vibrating mountain lizard. They had interacted with the vibrating mountain lizard day and night and had deep feelings for it. To ask them to abandon their mounts, many of them could not help but hesitate. The weight of the mechanical spirit weapons compared to the vibrating mountain lizard were not any lighter, so when they launched their assault, the impact was extremely shocking. Although it was the first time for this batch of students, but all of them were young and vigorous and all of them released their full strength. Just at that moment, a strange rumbling sound suddenly came out from another direction. Seeing the line of defense in front of him, Long Zhu immediately understood. Every step was meticulously arranged by the opponent. The Lupus army roared in anger and waved their blades at the same time. Countless blade auras were like raindrops, converging on Tang Yi's body. Long Zhu roared, his face contorted sinisterly, and no longer had the elegance he had before. He was like a wild beast on the brink of death, releasing its final roar. That also meant, in this short period of time, the entire mechanical army only had to face roughly 100 enemies. Bing's prestige among the students was extremely high, although the victory had caused everyone's blood to rush to their heads, but they gradually calmed down. Both parties clashed without any fanciful moves. Everyone frantically urged the vibrating mountain lizards to rush forward. They did not care about their comrades who were struggling and wailing on the ground, or the vibrating mountain lizards that were not dead yet. Under the trampling of the torrent, they were all turned into meat paste. To Long Zhu it was his only chance. Heavy spear assault. It was not easy to find such a powerful military general to be his sparring partner. Risk it all. He was also in awe of the master's methods. So fast. The Lupus army that had pierced through the vibrating mountain army had already broken away from the enemy's formation, and left behind a 50 m wide empty space in the enemy's formation. That also meant that the enemy's front and back were separated. At the start, when they chose the position to attack, Bing had requested for them to attack at a quarter of the enemy's formation. Once he started his assault, regardless of whether it was the vibrating mountain lizards or the other armies, in his eyes, there was no difference. His words were like thunder and the Zanbato slashed down. Xiao Wu, who was long prepared, led a group of mechanical spirit weapons and rushed to the front and stood firmly. These mechanical spirit weapons were different from the other mechanical spirit weapons. They were equipped with specialized defensive mechanical spirit weapons. Chapter 440. Seems like this master of yours is usually not loved and respected by you guys. Sima Xianxia said faintly. Kacha Wang Yi let out a pitiful wail like a pig being butchered, his entire face distorted. The 4 bodyguards and a Maori and the other 3 were in a standoff, but both sides were attracted by the sudden battle and forgot to fight. At that moment the 4 bodyguards heard Wang Ye's cry for help, and immediately reacted without saying a word. They abandoned a Maori and the other 3 and ran towards Wang Yi. Suddenly, an intense energy undulation came out from the palace. How to shorten the recruit period, how to promote the potential and talented basic officers, etc. All these problems he had spent countless of his blood and sweat in the past. In the midst of the chaos, the vibrating mountain army was slowly being cut up, dismembered into small pieces. Save me. Bing was already too lazy to look at the battlefield. He had already skipped over the battle and was thinking about the next few steps. A clear and crisp sound came out. A palm blocked Han Bingning's sword tip. Hearing that, Wang Yi, who was in extreme pain, could not take it anymore and immediately fainted. All right, Draco Constellation's army can only be like this. Han Bingning then saw the enemy clearly. It was actually a spirit general. Just that this spirit general was different from all the other spirit generals she had seen before. Because it did not look like a human but more like a mythical evil spirit. Its body was as thin as a match, its head was huge, its face was ugly, its arms were extremely long, almost touching the ground. Its 10 fingers were like bird claws, its nails were sharp and were jet black. The other 3 bodyguards also summoned their own spirit generals. Ling Su, who was on the roof, had his eyes explode, his face full of shock. What is that? How can there be such an ugly spirit general? Out of the 4, Han Bingning's light body technique was second only to Sima Xianxia. In the blink of an eye, he had rushed behind the enemy, his cold sword unsheathed. Sima Xianxia grabbed onto Wang Ye's neck and said faintly, "The battlefield is such a chaotic place, don't run around." Crane's fingers that were holding onto the sword had turned white. He lowered his head and muttered to himself, his tone gloomy. Ling Su was also shocked. The last time Bing displayed was a military general's superb control aura techniques. But today Bing did not even make a move and only commanded and dispatched orderly. It was like a brilliant chess player who didn't make any moves that showed off his abilities. Every move he made was very subtle, but after a few dozen moves, people would suddenly realize that he had already won. Bing was very calm. Such a victory to him was very normal. He was more concerned about the performance of the students. There were many reasons why he was transferred to the recruit camp. Sima Xianxia had a stomach full of bad ideas. Long ago when Wang Yi was running frantically, he had already noticed it. When Wang Yi opened his mouth to call for help, he was the first to move. His light body technique was originally exceptional, and quietly appeared beside Wang Yi. At this time the 4 bodyguards had just moved. What was the strategic significance of taking down Draco Constellation? And what kind of reactions would it cause? Hearing that, Ling Su's hair all stood. He opened his eyes wide and said in disbelief, This is too perverse. Spirit generals are truly different from poisonous insects." Bing was very satisfied with the battle. He did not expect the vibrating mountain army to appear. But just in case, he still brought Tang Yi's Lupus army to protect the completely new army. When they discovered the vibrating mountain army, Bing's spirit was roused and he started to plan. Bing thought to himself. Crane's heart warmed. He calmed down. Seems like the vibrating mountain army entering Ursa Major constellation this time should be the doing of the clan union in the dark. Seems like the clan union also wants to fish in troubled waters and are restless. But since they met us, then they deserve to be unlucky. In the entire process, other than the Lupus army's assault, it gave people a dazzling and sharp feeling. The battle after that was not beautiful at all, to the point that the mechanical army led by Bing was clumsy, continuously making all sorts of mistakes. For example, the change in tactics, for example the outflanking was not in place, etc., causing the entire battle to look extremely chaotic. And as a military general, they liked to think about the next step in advance. Bing was considering if they should take the chance to kill their way into Draco Constellation. Draco Constellation's army was practically gone, and what was left was roughly the Saints. The 4 of them were in a dilemma and did not know what to do. Wang Yi was completely scared silly. His face was as white as paper, his mouth was ah, but no sound came out. Spirit generals were formed from martial artists, martial spirits after they died, and thus they would retain the appearance of the living. All spirit generals were like that, and no one had ever heard of such a deformed and ugly spirit general in front of them. Using battle as a substitute for training, this was the method that he had fumbled out in the past. The intensity of the battle at that time was unimaginable today, although the Southern Cross Army had complete reserves, but they still faced the problem of lacking in manpower. Ding. The other 3 spirit generals, although they had different appearances, but they were deformed and ugly and were all the same. In a short period of time he had completed the entire battle plan. Such a terrifying military general. Crane sucked in a breath of cold air and could not help but praise. So Uncle Bing is actually so powerful. Sima Xianxia did not care and said to the 4 of them, "Surrender for the sake of your master's life." By controlling the 4 of them, the entire battle was more or less over. Ling Su's killing intent soared. In truth, he did not want to expose the Sky Marshal Wolf Academy and the mechanical army so early, but to reach his requirements with conventional methods required a very long time. And time to them was the most important thing. Wang Ye's 4 bodyguards shouted with all their might. His heart was filled with fear. He was just a strategist. To let him move his mouth to come up with some schemes. It was not a problem with his weak strength in the chaotic battlefield. To be able to survive until now was a miracle. Han Bingning's heart trembled. It was her first time seeing such a deformed spirit general. Crane squinted his eyes and said coldly, "Clan Union. I never thought that they would actually become more and more severe." Run. A Maori stared and rushed towards the 4 of them. A strange true power flowed along the sword tip and entered Han Bingning's meridians. Han Bingning snorted, releasing his true power at the same time. An even more ferocious true power rushed over. There wasn't much that made people's eyes light up. In fact, it was somewhat ordinary. However, when the battlefield was divided into small pieces, people suddenly realized something. Clan Union? Ling Su was at a loss. Yes. Crane stared coldly at the 4 spirit generals in the field and said indifferently, "Clan Union is a new powerhouse. They are formed by a group of small powerhouses. They have researched a very forbidden technique, and that is the devouring and merging of spirit generals. It is like raising poisonous insects. To obtain stronger poisonous insects, they will place different kinds of poisonous insects together, and let them fight and kill each other, devour each other, and finally nurture the strongest poisonous insect. Clan Union spirit generals are like that." Sima Xiangshan's movements were gentle as he broke one of Wang Ye's fingers. The figures suddenly split apart. Fighting was the best touchstone. The figure beside him flashed past. It was Han Bingning. How much confidence does he need? Wang Yi had already jumped down from the back of the vibrating mountain lizard when the situation was bad. At that time Long Zhu and the rest did not have the time to care about him, and his luck was good. In such a chaotic situation he was actually able to escape. But the battle had scared everyone silly, especially Wang Yi. Even Crane and Ling Su, who were standing on the roof of the palace, the 2 of them looked at the crisscrossing battlefield, saw the Lupus army that appeared out of nowhere, saw Long Zhu's dying counterattack, and saw how Bing easily cut and dismembered the vibrating mountain army. Chapter 441. Crane quietly jumped far away, afraid of disturbing Ling Su. However, awakening the Big Dipper, Bing was also shocked. It did not make sense. Crazy Tang did not even have half a star coin relationship with Big Dipper. How could he awaken Big Dipper? Could it be the desolate bare bone? Crane's face revealed a look of disbelief. This is Ursa Major Constellation's new recognition of a saint treasure. Crazy Tang succeeded. In the past, the 18 stars that formed Ursa Major Constellation looked like a big bear squatting down, but currently the positions of the few stars that formed the head of the bear had shifted upwards, and looking at it, it looked like the big bear was standing up. Especially when Crazy Tang obtained the recognition of Ursa Major Constellation. "I'm really sorry." The pain of the silver transformation seemed to have disappeared at this moment. He quietly listened to the singing, as if he was listening to a group of proud veterans, narrating their glorious military exploits. They once had another name, a name that had been forgotten for too long: Big Dipper. The current Heaven's Road was completely different from when he was at that time. Ursa Major Constellation could only be ranked 3rd in Heaven's Road, and when he first saw it he was extremely surprised. Because in his era, the Ursa Major Constellation had always been one of the traditional tyrants, and even the Southern Cross Army feared them. But now it had fallen to the 3rd tier. How could he not sigh? "Although your beliefs, your ideals, are different from mine. I respect you and admire you, but I will not follow your path." Luckily, no one dared to go near him, because the desolate bare bone floating above Tang Tian's head released a fluctuation that only a saint treasure would have. Don't think that Ursa Major Constellation was heavily injured. Their vitality was greatly affected. But Tang Tian, who held the saint treasure, was definitely not someone ordinary martial artists could provoke. The silver spear seemed to have heard Ling Su's thoughts. The song that entered his ears turned from a low to a resounding and impassioned voice. Ling Su felt as though he was in a battlefield. Countless silver figures rushed left and right. The silver spear flew and the battle was intense. Not to fail. After being forced to stop burning, Yan Yonglia's martial spirit regained its consciousness. The silver spear is like snow. The clouds are pure and untainted. The sound of the sheep horn bell was not heard by the cool breeze. The sun shines but no shadow. The spear is straight. The noble heart guard my stars. Bing looked at Tang Tian, who had yet to open his eyes, his heart brimming with pride. Such a perfect situation, how could he lose? Ling Su knew that this was an illusion, but the illusion in front of him was so realistic. Every figure was so real. When Ling Su saw it clearly, he was stunned. In the sky above, the dim Ursa Major constellation, a star on its back suddenly lit up with light aura. Following that, the neighboring stars lit up, and from the back to the tail, one after another, the stars lit up. 7 stars formed a bright spoon. Intense star power spewed out from the 7 stars. The spoon slowly spun, causing the Ursa Major constellation to undergo an astonishing change. The positions of the stars quietly changed. That was what a man should do. Although Angelina held on to the fairy hoop, but her own strength was limited, and the fairy hoop's power in her hands was not even 10%. But Tang Tian's own strength was tyrannical, and with the saint treasure in his hands, that was relatively terrifying. This is for a constellation to change a saint treasure in the history of Heaven's Road, there were precedents. But for it to happen in front of him, Crane was still surprised. He closed his eyes and carefully felt the undulations in the air, and after a while he finally realized, it truly was the desolate bare bone. I was not able to persevere until you guys won. You guys are definitely still fighting, right? If I die, you guys will have to live on in defeat. But I am not able to shoulder the defeat and humiliation with you guys. Crazy Tang's self-confidence was unparalleled. He was the #1 stalker. His potential was bottomless. Even when Yen Yonglai was alive, Bing did not think King Bear would win, and furthermore he was currently in the state of martial spirit ignition. Ling Su was at a loss. He did not understand. Crane did not explain further and smiled. We just have to protect Crazy Tang. But Bing quickly calmed down. As a commander, his strategic foresight far surpassed others. The Big Dipper 7 stars being awakened was naturally a good thing, but it would definitely cause a chain reaction. The light pillar disappeared, and in front of Tang Tian floated a fuzzy martial spirit. On its head floated a dim bear head crown, that was the previous saint treasure of Ursa Major constellation, King Bear Head. The light pillar that shot into the sky from the palace suddenly collapsed, converging into a dazzling gold light, floating above Tang Tian's head. Only Crane and Ling Su, who were close to it, could clearly see the gold light was a golden bone. The surging and vast star power, with the desolate bare bone as the center, lingered without dispersing. The undulation that was different from the King Bear Head was transmitted to every corner of Ursa Major constellation. For some reason, Ling Su's agitated state of mind calmed down. Furthermore, even without the Ursa Major star's umbrella, Big Dipper was still relatively strong. A gust of wind blew past, the fuzzy martial spirit and the dim King Bear Head transformed into ashes, dissipating in the air without a trace. Crane noticed Ling Su's change, his face revealing a look of surprise, then a look of helplessness. As expected, all of them were unreliable fellows. To gain enlightenment while protecting. Can you be more of a scapegoat for your teammates? When the constellation stopped changing, the congealed star power suddenly seemed to have thawed and became extremely lively. The energy in the air compared to before, although it was much thinner, it was filled with vitality. But please believe me, no matter what, I will not disgrace it. Crane and Ling Su were alarmed by the movements of the army. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.